All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Knowles.
Good afternoon.
To introduce yourself, tell us your name and DOC number.
My name is Paul Knowles, Jr., 96144.
Okay. And Mr. Knowles, you're here this afternoon. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Jefferson Parish, the 24th Judicial District, in November 1981 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And let me acknowledge you have guests there with you. You have your sister, Miss Margaret Conrad. She'll be speaking on your behalf. And you also have your sister-in-law, Miss Angela Knowles.
Yes, yes.
Joining us by Zoom, we have Mr. Andrew Hunley with the Parole Project who will be speaking. And we also have here in opposition a representative from the DA's office in Jefferson Parish, and we'll hear from him at the appropriate time. Mr. Knowles, your case has been assigned to Mrs. Jackson. Would you answer her question?
Good afternoon, Mr. Knowles. How are you today?
Grateful to be here.
Okay, all right. Well, let's kind of get into why you're here. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, how old are you, Mr. Knowles?
I'm 64. I'll be 65 in December.
And how long have you been incarcerated?
42 years.
Okay, so you were 22, give or take, when this crime occurred. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I would like for you to explain to us, Mr. Knowles, what happened. How did you end up killing Miss Marie, and just walk us through what happened to him.
Okay. Me and a friend of mine, we're going out to a club. We went to Frank's house to see if he wanted to go out with us. When we got there, he was loaded, drunk. He had liquor, pills, all kind of paraphernalia like this. I was going to leave. When I tried to leave, the door was locked. So I couldn't get out of there. I told them I wanted to leave. I don't do drugs. I didn't do drugs or drink. When I tried to leave, he kept telling me, no, stay. And on the side of the house, on the side of the room, he entertained a lot of parties, and there was cutlery there. He did a lot of pies and cakes, things of that nature, pastries. There was knives, big spoons, big forks. So,
Can I stop you for a minute, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Knowles?
yes, ma'am.
When we get your case, we get all of the police reports and everything associated with the
Okay.
case. So we actually have the facts of the case before
Okay.
us.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time looking at the case and looking at the facts of the case. And so generally, when I ask you to tell us what happened, it's not that I don't know the circumstances. I want to know, is the offender going to be honest? Is he going to be forthcoming and own up and take responsibility
Yes,
for
ma'am.
what they've done? And what I have in front of me is an excerpt from a police report that after you were questioned by the detectives, you asked to call your parents in Florida. Remember that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And after speaking to your parents, you became upset and you told the three officers, I killed him, I killed Frank Emery.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Used the knife that you got from the kitchen and stabbed Mr. Emery more than once. You said Mr. Emery provoked the attack by talking about your sister. He said they argued, Mr. Emery slapped him, and then you killed Mr. Emery. That's what you said at first. And then there was some indications that Mr. Emery had some photographs from a sailboat that were, let's just say, something that you didn't want disclosed. And because of that, he was killed.
Okay, let me explain something here. Some of that was in the trial
Mm-hmm.
of the photographs, but that had nothing to do with him at all, as far as killing, no. And the knife, I might have said that at that time, but there was cutlery there, and I might have said kitchen, but it was like they kept, you had parties and you had forks and knives and all that to cut up with. That's where the knife came from. And
That usually is kept in a kitchen.
well, you could say it was a kitchen maid. I don't think I just say the cutlery on the side. That's all. I mean, it could have been a kitchen area. At the time when all this happened, ma'am, I wasn't real. I just kind of freaked out, and it had nothing to do with my sister. There was drugs there, and what set me off was he had a syringe of something in it, and I'm terrified of needles, and I grabbed the knife only to stop him from coming at me. That's it. I didn't mean for anything to happen. I took his life, man. Yes, I did. I didn't go in there and mean to. It wasn't intentionally. It just happened. I so wish I hadn't, but it did happen. There was the pictures and all that at that time had nothing to do with that. I was openly gay. And that had nothing at all to do with that. Somehow I don't know where that came from. That was in the trial, but not for that.
The only thing that I can say, Mr. Knowles, is that I'm reading from the report, and the statement about your sister came from the interview that you initially gave to the police. So that's where that came from. Mr. Emery was talking about your sister. They argued. He slapped you. Then he killed Mr. Emery. There was no mention of some effort on his part to inject you with drugs with the syringe. And the only thing I can go by what I have before.
Okay, what?
You do acknowledge that you stabbed Mr. Emery to death.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? And what did you do after you stabbed him to death?
I really don't. We left. It was something that's so bad. I take full responsibility for it.
I'm just asking you a simple question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
How did he end up in the bathtub?
I remember vaguely how we pulled him in there. I don't even know why. I don't understand that myself. I've had a long time to think of that. I'm unsure of that. When it happened, nobody knows what they feel like if they take a life. And this did happen. I did take this life. I can't bring it back. And it takes something out of your person when this happens. I'm so sorry. I don't have answers for some of the things, because at that time, I just don't know, ma'am. I'm so.
All right. So let's talk about the last 42 years, Mr. Knowles. Tell me some of the things that you've been involved in over the last 42 years.
Okay, the first few years I was here, when I came here, lifers couldn't get in school. There was a number of things they couldn't do, okay? And I tried.
Well, what have you done? When you were able to, what have you done?
I got my GED in '98. And before that, I have right here I took
Tell them some certificates. you
I
have.
took CPR class, Experience of God, CPR, got my high school diploma in 1998.
That's, listen to me, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Nolan.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, CPR is great, but CPR doesn't
Right,
impact, your thinking or who you are as a person, or help you understand yourself or how you came to murder someone. I'm not interested so much in CPR or even your horticultural diploma or your plumbing apprenticeship.
right.
We're interested in, what has had the most impact on you as a human being from programs that you have taken during your incarceration.
Anger management, my GED, those have helped me with a number of things.
Let me
Well,
ask you, critical living balance, is that correct?
Pardon me? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why did you take living in balance?
Because people, when I took other classes or tried to get in, the people that I talked to, the teachers or whatever, they explained to me, you can get these classes and it'll help you. It can't hurt you. And some of them really did help. I learned a lot of things that when I was young, I didn't know. You don't know how a person feels, when you take a life, their families, their cousins, his brothers. I didn't know. I was young. And then things happen in here. I learned, and it's a terrible place to learn things. You're supposed to learn them, when you're growing up. I quit school when I was 16 years old. I don't know why. I'm really not sure, but I did. One of the worst things I ever did in my life. I ran with a crowd, we'll say, a bad crowd, maybe, I don't know. But I chose these things myself. And it wasn't until later on when I took some of these classes and I talked to the people and I listened that I understood I just was on the wrong path. Sometimes you don't know, you're just having fun or having a good time or something like that and don't know until somebody shows you a better path. And then you see, well, hey, I didn't have to be in here all this time if I'd have followed this or followed that, but I didn't. And I regret it so much.
Stop talking, okay? Just stop talking for a minute. Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds like you took victim awareness and you learned how your crime impacted other people.
Yes, ma'am. A great
How
deal.
did, how did that change you?
I see things that now, in altercations, let's say, not to do this or not to do that because of how it makes other people feel. The chain reaction that happens when I do something wrong in that manner, any manner actually. But I learned the regard for others that I just really didn't know before. Whether it was stupidity, ignorance, I don't know. In the depths of my heart, I learned things that they're probably common, maybe, in the regular world, but some people don't know that for whatever reason, I don't know. And I learned to wait, check things out, to look at stuff through other people's eyes also, that you're not just hurting you're them, that one person or whatever. There's a whole line of other people, your family, their family.
Okay, all right, thank you. What's your current job at the prison?
I work as an orderly.
And how long have you done that?
Almost a year.
And what have you done most of the time as far as a job in prison?
Okay, most of the job, I've been a clerk most of the time. Many years I've worked here as a clerk.
And you also have a horticulture diploma.
Yes,
Have you
ma'am.
used that as at the prison?
Have I used it as a prison? Not really, not yet.
What about the plumbing?
Yes, yes. I was a clerk in the plumbing shop for 8 years. And I learned, I learned certain things. I was the clerk, but being a clerk, you learn stuff,
You've had 13 write-ups in the last 42 years, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the last one, I think, was in 1991.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember anything about those write-ups?
Some of them, one I remember I got which was kind of crazy, but I had a calculator, a solar calculator, and I was helping someone else. Since I couldn't go do GED, I was helping some other people. And I got wrote up for it, for having a calculator, a solar calculator. I didn't know that you couldn't have that. Other people had calculators, but I had a solar calculator. When I first came in here, for those first few years, I was just kind of, I guess angry was the word, very mad at myself, very, very in denial. And then one day I said, man, this is not it. I got to stop this. And experiencing God and Kairos, when I went to Kairos, really changed my world. It changed my life. And I thought these write-ups are stupid. One write-up, they had a sex offense write-up. Me and a dude were playing around, but I was trying to kiss him. Wasn't his fault. Yeah.
And I was only asking about the ones from 1991.
Oh, 91. Okay.
Okay. It was a
she don't
28,
do-
and it was a Rule 3 on one occasion and Rule 28 on the other. But we'll move on from that. You have a low risk assessment. Your institutional record is good. You've been described as a model offender. So let's talk about your transition plan. If you were to be successful at some point, tell us what you plan to do. Where do you plan to live? Where do you plan to work? How do you plan to support yourself?
Okay. I plan to, when I leave here, I'll go to the transition house with Andrew Hundley. And from there, get everything I need there and learn from him and everything. Then I'll go to live with my sister in Suwanee, Georgia. I'll be an assistant to her, she's transitioning to a new job and all that, and putting her computer and all that, getting all that together. During that time also, I also want to do some horticulture work also there. That's where I'll live in Georgia. And I want to do what I can. I want to live a good life. I want to honor, if this board gives me a favorable outcome, I want to honor that every day of my life. I will do good. I won't let anybody down.
You do have some opposition, Mr. Knowles, the sitting judge, not the one that was the judge when the crime occurred. Also, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, the Kenner Police Department, and the Jefferson Parish DA's office. And our victim coordinator reached out to attempt to find survivors of the victim, and were unsuccessful in doing that. Or is there anything you can tell us about Mr. Knowles? Anything you'd like to add?
Yes, like you said before, he has a low risk factor. He does personally work for me currently. He does have some medical issues that he sees the doctor on a regular basis for, which are, common for his age. He's done all his programs. He's taken the 100 hours, and he is going to relocate to Georgia with his sister. I think she's retired military.
All right, thank you. Mr. Knox, that's all I have.
I don't see any other questions here, so we'll hear first from support, Mr. Hunley.
Andrew Hunley with Louisiana Parole Project, appearing before the board to inform you that if Paul is granted a release in the near future, he would be a client of our reentry program. Paul was an easy client for us to accept based on over 40 years of incarceration, over 30 years without a disciplinary report. He's been a Class A trustee for the vast majority of his incarceration and has completed numerous self-help programs in addition to a horticulture vocational degree. He also has, obviously, as you've heard, a very highly trusted job at the prison working for Warden Hooper. If he is released, he'll come into our reentry program where we'll work with him with his initial transition. We'll ensure he receives a substance abuse and mental health assessment and that he complies with all recommendations that our staff social worker give. We'll work with him on technology, financial management, and working in getting accustomed to modern day social norms. And then at whatever time we felt comfortable with his reintegration, we'd move him from phase 1 to our program to live with his sister in Georgia, but he'd continue to receive case management services from us, and we would work to ensure that he has the support he needs in Georgia to continue to be successful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next, Ms. Margaret Conrad.
Yes, ma'am. And,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You stay where you're at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can see, you can keep your seat.
Oh, sit down?
Stay where you're at.
Okay, okay, and also I want to say that I have an ear issue right now, I have fluid, so I can't hear as well as I normally do, but believe me, it's getting better. So, yeah, so I'm ready.
Just tell them.
Go ahead.
Oh, tell whatever I want to say? Okay, first of all, and I don't know how much you want me to tell you, but I'll
About
just
3
tell you.
minutes.
Pardon?
About 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. First of all, I know him. I wasn't here when it all happened. I was overseas, military, So I had no idea of all of the stuff that was playing out until I got back to the United States, and it was just crazy. So anyway, all I can say is I know him. We talked, we've been, if there was ever a light in a dark place, this is the person. He has gone, we are brothers and sisters in Christ as well as brothers and sisters in life, okay? So, and I'm telling you this because, let me just keep going. So anyway, he has not only helped people here in the prison that nobody even has a clue, okay? In so many ways, because he goes outside of these boundaries. And the way I say that is because, and I'm gonna give you a quick example. My daughter, okay, had migraines really bad, Somebody in here in the prison thought that he was being punished because he was having these migraines and nobody could help him, My daughter sent him information about migraines. He went to this inmate and said, this is normal, this is what's happening. It soothes the person. I could tell you story after story. Katrina, okay, is that it?
Well, it's quick.
Oh, well, would you stop talking to me? Anyway, all I can tell you is I cannot believe this is my sister-in-law who is, yeah, but anyway, I could tell you story after story. He's been here 42 years. It has been amazing, an amazing journey and the most incredible journey on the planet, as far as I'm
So
concerned.
do you support him going home?
Yes,
Okay,
definitely support him going home. I
Coming to
can't,
stay
okay.
with you.
And that's
Okay.
it. He's coming to stay with me, and I can't wait because he knows how to do Excel and all these things that I don't.
Okay. Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your enthusiasm. All right, we'll hear from the DA's office now, Mr. Meyer.
Good afternoon, Randy Meyer, Assistant DA Jefferson Parish, and we're opposed to Mr. Knowles' request for commutation of his sentence. In looking at what happened, the facts of this particular case and what he's saying now, I don't believe he's being totally honest with the board, and that concerns me greatly with him getting a commutation of sentence. The facts is set forth at the time of the offense. Only Mr. Knowles was in the house. The victim threatened him. Pictures and threatened his sister. They had an argument and the victim slapped him, at which time Mr. Knowles grabbed a knife from the kitchen and stabbed him numerous times. Police found blood on the kitchen sink and on the kitchen refrigerator. And the kitchen sink blood matched Mr. Knowles' blood type. In his pardon application, it seems to me like he's trying to put this in a much different light, almost to the point of being more of a self-defense type situation. That Mr. Knowles was coming at him with a syringe, and he took a knife from the side of the table and stabbed him. And he said his co-defendant jumped on him, on the victim, grabbed the knife and jumped on the victim's back as well. But originally, at the time of the offense, he was the only person in the house. The co-defendant had left and came back and picked him up after the crime had been committed. So it appears to me he's not being honest with us as to the facts of what happened. And I think some of the programs that he's had, rehabilitative programs he's had, are very limited. So for those reasons, we're opposed to his request today.
Right, thank you, sir. So, Mr. Knowles, there you are. Is there a brief statement you'd like to make to us before we vote?
Yes,
Brief.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have no reason to lie. Maybe something is not remembered right, but I have no reason to lie. I've been here 42 years, and this is my only, I'm hoping to get to leave here. I have no reason to lie, none. If something is amiss, that I didn't say something right or whatever, but I have no reason to lie, none whatsoever. I take full responsibility of taking Frank Emery's life. I murdered him. I am so sorry for that, but I have no reason to lie to you, none. At that time, half the stuff, I don't know what I said, because I was so out of it, so terrified. Nobody knows what they will say or how they'll feel or how they'll be if they take a life. I just ask for mercy.
All right, thank you, sir. I think we are prepared to vote. Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Knowles, I really do wish you'd been a little bit more forthcoming with your statement, but that's just one factor. You do acknowledge that you took Mr. Knowles' life. You're only 22 when this crime occurred. You're a first offender. You have a low risk score. You already have only had 13 write-ups in the whole time you've been there. And the last one was over 30 years ago. You have a good institutional record and you described by your supervisor as being a model offender. You have a good transition plan and family support. And so my vote today would be to recommend a commutation sentence of 50 years, immediate parole eligible.
Okay, Mr. Roshan?
Mr. Knowles, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Based on the length of your incarceration, positive remarks from Martin Hooper, and basically your transition plan out of state, I'm going to vote to commute this sentence to 50 years.
Mr. Mirabella?
My vote is the same, Madam Chairman, for the same reasons. So, Judge Jackson.
Mr. Freeman?
I concur with both of my colleagues, all three of my colleagues.
All right, and I also concur, so you've received a unanimous vote, Mr. Knowles, to make the recommendation your sentence be commuted to 50 years with immediate parole eligibility. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I don't think, have we ever seen a warden sit like that on behalf of an inmate the entire time, almost like an attorney? That that I think has to have a lot to do with it. I don't think we've ever seen that. We've seen wardens make really strong statements or have strong opinion, well, statements, but not to this extent where they sat there with him. I the problem is there is something, and I'll put the link in the description, but it's not worth going through because it only talks about his appeal based on his confession. It goes through all of the different variables of his confession, but it doesn't touch on the actual crime. What I do have to say is based on what Randy said, I these are the exact scenarios where I say you can't let him out because I am just the strong believer that one has to be honest. That's all they have to do at this point is be honest. And he wasn't. Uh, I do have a problem with, he's saying, I have no reason to lie. I have no reason to lie. There's no reason to lie. He must have said it like, I don't know, 12 times in his final statement or something. And it's like, well, yeah, you have a point. There is no reason to lie, but why are you lying then? And on top of it, you're dragging your victim through the mud. You're he's not here to defend himself because you killed him. So for you to get up and say that he was coming at you with a syringe, so you defended yourself, yeah, I have a problem with that. Maybe you do have a reason to lie. Maybe you do want to still one up him. You still want to rewrite history. You don't want to view yourself as a bad guy. That's why you lie. Now, they said, remember, this is a commutation hearing, so they're making a recommendation to the governor. The governor will sign off on it, and then he will have a parole hearing. And we have seen multiple times, more than once, where at the parole hearing, the victim's family comes in droves, and they are upset. And they say, whoa, we never got a notification about this commutation hearing. We've seen that so many times. There was a hearing that we didn't see, but we saw after where it made the news. The family never got the notification. The family had gotten the commutation grant. Might have been a parole hearing actually, and there was so much outroar that the governor actually overturned the parole board's decision. And it's a whole legal thing if it was even legal to do that, but they used the excuse that the family wasn't notified. And it's very possible. We've seen it happen over and over. There's like one person maybe working in the parole board, and they have a lot of work on their plate, and they have to go and try to find some addresses and whatever. I don't know. So it's possible. My point is, it's possible that at the parole hearing, which might happen in 6, if the governor signs it, it is possible the family shows up and says, no, 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 no. And we have seen recently, we saw one case where the parole was denied after the governor signed off on it, and I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it, but the family had shown up, and they were pretty upset. And it makes a big difference. I think it makes all the difference. Again, if the family had shown up here and there could have been a voice outside of, who was it, his sister, that goes rambling on and on and on about, like, I get she's excited, but it was funny. She ended her statement. She's so excited he's going to come move in with her because he knows how to use Excel. And it was like that was, I don't know if you caught that, but that was like the epitome of her speech. It's like, he's so amazing. He's a shining light. He's so great. There are so many stories I can tell you. One story is that his friend was having problem with migraines, and I told him about migraines, and he told his friend that it's okay. These are migraines. So, what? Like, really? Is that the best? I get she's excited and, you know, but um, there are people here who spend 30 years helping helping the dying in prison and the infirm and who who have, a lot more to talk about than telling someone that they that hey, sorry about your migraine, but you just got to deal with it. That's what a migraine is. I don't know. Um, I do have a problem if he writes in his commutation request and he makes up a story. He makes up a story. Literally, he states that his co-defendant, and the only reason it was a co-defendant is because he helped him move the body. So he states that the co-defendant was in the house and was jumping on the guy's back when that never happened. He states that, he starts off framing the story with, well, we went to the buddy's house. We wanted to go to the club. And he was already plastered. He was wasted. He was all types of messed up. And I don't drink. I'm sober. I don't do anything. So he's framing already how he's an angel and how the guy who he killed is all messed up, right? That's how he starts his story. Then he wants to frame how there's innocently because they always had pastries. So there was knives. And then Miss Jackson cut him off and is like, we know what happened. And then he just goes and states, well, he was coming at me with a syringe, so there was a knife there, and I defended myself. And then and Randy Meyer confirms that that whole thing was made up. And what it seems is that he had pictures, I guess, of them together, and maybe he was threatening to blackmail him. And now he's saying, oh, everyone knew that I was out of the closet. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. I believe that he's lying because I think he's lied the entire hearing, and no one held him responsible for it. They really didn't. I mean, Randy Meyer did. Give him props for doing the homework. I know at the beginning I used to give him really hard time because I didn't understand that he just simply shows up to every single like hearing in his parish. Um, and it just so happens to be that most of the hearings are for like low level possession stuff. But no, he shows up to everything and he puts in the time and does the work. Again, if he had come out and been honest and shown insight, I would have said sure, go for it. But I just don't like it. I don't like that he's dragging his victim through the mud and then gets away with it. But we'll see. We'll see. There's still, like I said, the parole hearing that will have to happen after the governor signs off on this. But with that, I'll let you go.